What is up, people of YouTube? I'm your host Vernon. This is Lake Mead. Let's fish that. Alright, ladies and gents, we have our first little fish on. Gonna be a small little striper. Alright guys, first little striper, tiny little guy. These guys are feeding up at the top, they're not feeding down on the bottom. Let's get this guy back into the water. We want that little striper to grow a bit so we can catch him next time. And there we go, fish on. Don't know if you guys can see my bobber all the way out there, but as soon as it goes down, we got a tiny little striper. Only small stripers around, the bigger ones should be in deeper. But at least we're catching some fish. Now, I would like to point out we're not allowed to use game fish as bait fish, so I cannot put this guy on a hook and cast him out there. So let's get this tiny guy back into the water. And off he goes. Luckily still have my baits. Don't think they're going to stay on there, but let's cast them out and see. There we go, already another fish on. These baby stripers are very hungry, willing to go for anything. If you lift your bait out of the grass, they can find it a lot easier. Using smaller hooks, quite easy to get these little guys. Let's get them back into the water. And there he goes. This time around we have a double up. Alright guys, so catching quite a lot of small guys, but believe it or not, I didn't come out here just to catch these small guys. So let's release this one and get to why we're out here today. Alright ladies and gents, right off the bat I want to tell you that this is going to be a very talkative video. The reason for that, I've been getting quite a lot of questions lately about where to find stripers here at Lake Mead, and the best way for me to give you guys advice would be to show you what it is that I'm talking about and what I'm looking for. Now I would like to stress that I'm no professional fisherman, nor am I a marine biologist, but I have learned a few things from being out here trying to find the fish, and I would like to share some of this information with you guys. Alright, so I came out here this morning using some anchovies, got some hits, but I wasn't hooking any fish, swapped over to smaller pieces, and I caught something like 20 of these small little stripers. Now I basically used some anchovies as it is a go-to bait for stripers here in Lake Mead. You can catch stripers year-round on anchovies. There are no natural anchovies in these waters. It's the salt content of the anchovies. They are releasing salt in the water. That's what's drawing in the fish. A lot of times that is also why you'll catch some channel catfish using anchovies. But around this particular time of year, end of summer, early fall, anchovies seem to not be working as well for stripers as they should. That is why I wanted to use anchovies out there today to show that it's the small fish that are feeding on the anchovies at the moment. The bigger stripers are actually swimming past these anchovies, chasing the smaller fish. But before we get into the specifics of what baits or lures to be using out there at the moment, I need to stress that it is the angler's responsibility to understand the behavior of the fish, and it's that behavior that you're using to target these fish. What I mean by this is you need to know that stripers prefer cold water. That is why it's a lot easier for us bank anglers to catch them during the winter months, as the water up shallow is rather cold. The fish are up shallow. During the summer months, these fish tend to go in deeper. And please understand that when I'm saying deeper, I don't mean 180 feet. I mean they're moving from 12 feet into 30 feet of water. A lot of times these are drop-offs that you as a bank angler can reach. Just know that the fish are moving in deeper when it's hot. That is also why it's a good thing to try and find stripers early morning or late afternoon. The water temperatures are lower, so the fish are up shallow, and as the day progresses they move out deeper. And of course stripers are predatory fish, meaning low light conditions they can actually see better than the prey, and that is why early mornings and late afternoons great time to try and find these fish. Alright, but these fish are behaving different to the usual. It's end of summer, early fall. There are changes in the water. Days are shorter, water temperatures are slowly dropping. And the biggest change driving the fish's behavior this time of year is the big schools of bait fish. Now this is the most important thing when looking for stripers, is trying to find the bait fish. These fish are all circling the bait fish. They are feeding on the bait fish. And that is why if you're in a cove and you're not seeing any bait fish around, you are probably in the wrong spot. That is why I made my way to Upper Government Wash, because the last time I was out here I actually saw some bait fish around. Sadly, these bait fish are no longer in the area. I think the fish actually chased them out into deeper waters, or maybe they're just in some of the coves around and not in the spot that I'm currently at. That brings me to the biggest thing for us bank anglers this time of year, is you need to be willing to move around. If you're not seeing any bait fish in the water near you, chances are you're going to struggle to find fish. You need to move to different spots, try and find the bait fish, and that is where you're going to find the bigger stripers. Now using anchovies, you're not going to be able to catch these stripers. I've seen them swim past the anchovies chasing the bait fish, so you need the baits that look like bait fish. Now whether that be something like a little fluke, something that in this case has a shad pattern on there, little silver and blue and sparkly, or maybe even some spinner baits work pretty well. Just something that looks a bit different, stands out a bit from the other shad in the waters. Maybe throwing a jointed shad wrap. You'll see that all the baits I'm showing you are shad patterns. You need to match the hatch this time of year, whether it be a little lipless crank or anything. It needs to look like the bait fish. Now you need to kind of have your baits stand out from the rest of the fish. That is why something like top water baits are very good to use this time of year, especially something like a little whopper plopper or just a normal stick bait that you can move on the water. Something that looks like an injured bait fish is more likely to get hit. The third way of targeting these fish this time of year is using some live bait. Now whether you're using your cast net to catch some bait fish and putting them on the hooks, or using a service like Wriggler Army, getting some golden shiners or bullhead minnows, fish that you can put on your hooks, live line out there to try and find these fish. It's a very effective way of doing it. These moving and panicking fish stand out from the other fish. It's a great way to find fish out there. Alright guys, but there are a lot of things we anglers need to consider when looking for the fish. When arriving at a spot, give something like 15 minutes to just watch the water, see whether you're seeing any movement in the water, any fish jumping. If the water looks calm and dead, then most likely there aren't any bait fish in the area, so there won't be any predator fish. Or maybe having a look for some water birds. Water birds also chase the fish around and is a good indication of where these bait fish are. But these are all just some little pods that you need to consider when you're looking for the fish. Okay, so why did I choose Upper Government Wash for this specific video? Well, like I said previously, I thought there were some shad in these waters. I'm not seeing them around. Gonna have to move to all the other coves to try and find the shad. But I chose this specific location because of the actual location itself. You need to understand that places like South Cove, Echo Bay, and of course the Las Vegas Bay, these are great places to find fish because you have rivers and creeks running in. Anywhere you have some water flowing in, you also have some nutrients coming in. The nutrients helps algae to grow. Stuff like shad eat the algae. So these are natural feeding zones, places where you'll often find fish. That is why I chose this specific spot. But of course, fish also tend to follow people. Anywhere that people cast out baits, making feeding zones, you will find fish. So if you're finding places where people regularly fish, you'll often find fish there, as well as man-made structures, something like docks to give fish places to hide, or retention walls, great place for fish to chase the bait fish up against and keep them all together. So any of the walls near marinas, also a great place to find fish. It is also very important to think about the lay of the land. Here in Lake Mead, a lot of the features we have in the lake extend down into the water, meaning you have a point coming in. That point continues into the water. Now this is important to understand that because sometimes you will find fish on the point, but this time of year fish aren't going to be on the point that extends into the water. They're going to be off to the side because you have some deeper water to the side, and that's a great place for the fish to try and keep the bait fish all together, forcing them against the little point. So rather than casting your baits directly out on the point, think of going to the side. Alright, so that rod I got out there, that is my normal striper setup. I have a lead weight on there, something that I can get a good casting distance with some set hooks with my baits on there. The problem I'm having with that is I find that my baits more often than not end up in between the grass. When you're live lining some fish, maybe they'll be hiding in some rocks and stuff. So my problem with that is being on the ground where you still have some grass around. So my preferred setup for this time of year is using a little bobber, and from the bobber I have about 3 foot worth of line, and on here I have these are size 4 owner octopus hooks. The reason why I prefer the octopus hooks, it's a lot easier to hide in the baits because it's a smaller size hook. You don't have a long shaft that you need to hide in your baits. And when live lining fish, these are small hooks, easy to put through the little fish. Also, these are very sharp hooks. You need sharp hooks. If the fish grabs your bait, sometimes you have very few seconds to set the hook, and a sharp hook might just give you that few extra seconds to set the hook. Here at Lake Mead, you're allowed 2 hooks on your line. That is why I have 2 hooks on here. The idea being live lining 2 little fish out there, and with the bobber they stay suspended. They're not on the ground, they stay up in the air, especially close to where you see the shad moving and stuff. Great way for finding fish this time of year. Alright, so we did at least manage to find some small fish in this video. The point for this video is to try and explain to you guys what you should be looking for out there to try and find some fish. Now I know this is not what the people were asking. I know you guys are looking for some honey holes, some great places to find fish. But sadly, I don't have any honey holes. Even the spots where I regularly caught stripers, a lot of those places are no longer even in the water. So we need to go explore. We need to get out there and try and find where the fish are. It is a lot easier for people with kayaks or people on boats. Lake Mead has always been a boating paradise. But if you're not afraid to walk around, find the good spots, I'm sure you'll find some pretty good fish. Alright guys, I know this is quite a lot of information to take into consideration. It's not just as simple as throwing baits out there. You need to kind of think about what the fish are doing, where they are going to be, and how to target them. Maybe think of trying to use some lures or live lining some fish this time of year, it works a lot better than trying to find them on some anchovies. That does not mean you cannot find them on anchovies. Remember, you're allowed to use the second rod. Maybe throw some anchovies out on the second rod while you're working the lures. Alright, so a bit of a weird video, I know, but it's a great way to get some information out to you, my viewers. So if you enjoyed the video, please do give me a little thumbs up. Feel free to ask any questions down below in the comments. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and checking out some of the other videos I have out there. Alright, but I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Well. Welcome to Dinkfest 2021. If only it was this easy to catch the bigger stripers. Hey, at least we're catching some fish.